Hello there. Welcome to Speaking of Business. I'm your host, Nancy Boyle, and today we're going to be talking about two upcoming events, one for nonprofit organizations and one for those businesses who are looking for money. Joining me on the first half of the show is Dr. Georgette Dumont with the University of North Florida Political Science and Public Administration Department, and Kevin Monahan with the Small Business Development Center at UNF. So welcome.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
That's a long title.
It is. It's a very long department name, yes.
So tell us what you do with UNF.
I teach in there predominantly in the master's program. It's in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration. The department offers a master's program in public administration. Within the master's program, you can students are able to concentrate on nonprofit management. And in addition to the master's degree, we also offer a graduate certificate in nonprofit management.
Okay, and so anybody is eligible for the certificate program, or do you have to gain admission to the college, if you will, with certain criteria?
For the graduate certificate, you have to have a bachelor's degree already, and then you do apply for the program, and there are criteria, and you just contact the director of the Masters in Public Administration program, Dr. Candler, and he will walk any interested applicants through the process.
Okay, so tell us what the certificate program is like, because we probably have folks who are currently working for a nonprofit organization that may be watching today that might think, you know, I've been doing my job for a while, but it wouldn't hurt to get a little bit of education. Maybe I can learn some new things. So why don't you kind of walk us through that?
Well, one of the wonders of a graduate certificate or the nonprofit concentration in the Masters in Public Administration course is even if you have a lot of experience, what it does is it helps to provide a framework for all those experiences so you can see how they interrelate with each other.
Okay.
Both the certificate and the concentration are 4 main courses, and the 4 courses are nonprofit management, and this is the general nonprofit leadership management and the regular management skills. Okay. We also offer one for nonprofit finances, and then nonprofit stakeholder relations. It really helps students understand the diversity of the stakeholders in the sector and what are the different things that they are looking for from these nonprofit organizations. And then the 4th course is an elective that deals with nonprofit organizations. For example, this summer I taught a class called e-governance, and so it really focused on technology and then how organizations, and it was a cross-listed course, meaning that it was for nonprofit organizations as well as public organizations, and how these different types of organizations can use technology to help them in their governance structures.
Excellent. Excellent. Kevin, I think you've taken this class, haven't you?
I have indeed. It was a great experience. I did it back in 2008, and it gave me another perspective. And again, I felt I had been around the nonprofit sector for most of my career, and it was really worthwhile. I think one of the things that it does is when you're in a nonprofit, training is few and far between. It's not like a corporation that keeps sending you to things. And when you're on a project manager, the ads for new training doesn't necessarily filter down to you either. So hopefully everybody's watching this, because it's a great opportunity if somebody does, in fact, take a chance to take this, because it's a great course, series of courses. And
let's talk a little bit about you. What do you do?
Well, Kevin Monahan again at the Small Business Development Center at the University of North Florida. We're an institute, part of the Coggin College of Business. I provide, as a CBA, Certified Business Analyst, no-cost consulting to people who are either starting a business, already in business, growing, have already been in business a long time, and we work a lot in the nonprofit sector as well. We do a number of things that you might call special projects, which is what people call a project when they don't know what to do with it, and they give it to me.
Okay, well that's good to know. For the audience's sake, let's sort of define a nonprofit, because you know sometimes you say that and somebody will chuckle and say, yeah, my business is nonprofit, meaning that they're not exactly making a lot of profits. So why don't you sort of define what is a nonprofit organization?
Well, a nonprofit organization is kind of a misnomer for what it is. Nonprofit organizations do make a profit. What makes them unique is that they don't distribute the nonprofits to shareholders or owners. All the profits get folded back into the organization to enhance its ability to achieve its mission.
Okay.
So that's the main difference.
So, you know, mission. So it's really a mission-based organization. You might think of a profit-making entity as their mission is to make money, but in a nonprofit organization, their mission is a little bit different.
Right. Nonprofit leaders have to focus on two aspects. One is mission and the other one is money.
Okay.
And so while in the for-profit you have to focus on the money, nonprofits are really geared towards achieving their mission through their programs and services. And that these missions serve a public benefit, a public good. One of the oftentimes people find that nonprofits, they think about it, oh, people work in the sector for free, or it's all volunteers, and they're businesses. It's just that what is done with any of the profit or the bottom line gets folded back in. That's the main difference. They are businesses. They have to make a profit for long-term sustainability. They have to make sure they're not always operating in the red.
Okay. And so the 501c3 status, where does that come from?
501c3 is actually a section of the tax code.
Okay.
And there are many 501cs. These are nonprofit organizations. For instance, credit unions are nonprofit organizations.
Hospitals.
Well, there are hospitals are 501c3s, but you have the non-501c3 organizations. Main ones that people would know about would be a credit union or a chamber of commerce.
Okay.
They are part of the nonprofit sector.
Okay.
What most people know about within the nonprofit sector are the 501c3 organizations. And 501c3s are public charities or private foundations that give money to public charities.
Okay, so that's where your tax deductible part of your donation kind of comes in. If it's a 501c3 and you're giving them money, then you can claim it on your taxes as tax deductible.
Yes, and it's the only one that you can do that. Out of all the 501cs, 501c3s are the only ones that you can reduce your tax liability with.
Which might explain the popularity of the designation.
Yes, perhaps that's true. Now, Kevin, I want to go back to you because in the last, I don't know how many years, you can tell us, the Small Business Development Center has broadened its scope to work with nonprofit organizations. You know, for many, many years, you couldn't.
Up until 2005.
2005, okay, so 7 years.
Right.
So why don't you talk about some of the programs that are available to nonprofit organizations that you've developed in working at the SBDC?
Well, I kind of view our role in a not so different way as what Georgette is talking about, in that at the school we see ourselves as capacity builders. So there's the Nonprofit Center of Northeast Florida, who's a wonderful advocacy organization. There's Hands On Jacksonville that does a lot of work with volunteers. Both of them do some board training as well. And we like to think that we can do some of the one-on-one counseling, whether it's with board members or with frustrated executive directors that don't know where to turn to and need a little confidentiality. And then we also do a lot of strategic planning assistance. We'll do facilitation. We'll do business plans for nonprofits. Business plans do nonprofits too. I know that's another misnomer. People think you just have a strategic plan and not a business plan. And then we run a series of classes during the year. We run How to Start a Nonprofit quarterly, and then about 10 or 11 monthly 3-hour classes in different areas to up their capacity in the organization.
So what are some of those other areas?
Well, social media is red hot. It doesn't matter what you do. Social media, being able to tell the story, a nonprofit has to tell their story, so that's when it's very popular. But also some of the very important boilerplate ones like fundraising and grant writing, nonprofit finance, some basic marketing classes as well, strategic planning, which is a very popular one that we do, and one that's coming up, which is how to put together a 990, which is kind of the nonprofit 1040. In other words, they have to file taxes at the end of the year, and there's a lot of many misconceptions about how that's supposed to be done, so we'll be doing that in a month or two. Okay.
So let's kind of move on then to the conference.
Okay.
So why don't you start telling us about the conference, and we'll talk to Jed about her role in the conference and what your past experience was last year.
It dawned upon us over the last few years as we started working with nonprofits that although there was good advocacy and some amount of unity within the sector in our area, Northeast Florida, I don't really remember an event where we had everyone under one roof at one time, networking together, getting a pulse for what's going on in the industry in Northeast Florida, and then breaking out and not only networking, but maybe getting some information, some short courses and things like that. So last year was the first year we tried it. It was a half-day conference in September, and it was immensely popular. We had over 120 nonprofits join us. They took a leap of faith because we had never run it before.
Sure.
So now we're moving on to September 21st out at UNF at the well, where the Small Business Development Center is, but it's University Center. And we're going to have another half-day conference there. So it'll start with Raina Conflin from the Nonprofit Center giving us kind of an update on how the sector is doing. And then we'll have a series of breakout workshops in 3 different categories: leadership, management, things like that. And then we'll have a panel, and then break out again, and then have a final panel relative to best practices, and then lunch and networking. So it actually is it's a very nice half-day conference, but I think it's important for any nonprofit to interact with the others. New nonprofits want to be there to brand, to let people know that they're there. The older ones are always looking for the next new idea and best practices. So last year was very successful, and we're hoping to top that this year.
Now, is there a fee for this program?
It's $60 to attend. That's the first person from the organization. And then anybody else that wants to come, and we're trying to lure board members here, would be $35 a piece. So we give them a break on that.
And if somebody is interested, how can they get more information?
Well, the easiest thing to do would be either call the front desk and register right away, which would be 620-2476, or you go on our website, which is sbdc.unf.edu.
Okay. And Jen, I want to come back to you because you were one of the workshop presenters last year.
Yes.
Your workshop was on using social media, correct?
Yes.
So I assume you're presenting again this year?
I am not presenting again.
No?
I have a conflict between conferences and meetings, so I wasn't able to present this year. But the UNF's Public Administration Program is co-sponsoring this, and
we'll have a table.
Pardon?
I believe you're having a table with us.
I'm sure we will. Yeah. And the other professor one of the other professors who teaches in that, Dr. Candler, will be doing one of the workshops, and that one is on nonprofit accountability. And this one's really talking about that stakeholder framework that I mentioned, and it's applied. So we have 3 students who have applied this from last year taking the course, and they'll be presenting with him on how this rather unwieldy framework is actually used by nonprofits and how these nonprofits have benefited from its use.
Well, I know your workshop last year using social media for nonprofits was a huge success. So maybe talk a little bit about that, about how nonprofits are moving into the new age using the social media.
Nonprofits are getting better with using social media. I do a lot of research on nonprofits, and I've really focused on, since moving down to Florida, I've focused on the nonprofits in Duval County, and I wrote a report last year after surveying a bunch of the nonprofits and the social media use. So when a nonprofit strives to use social media, they really should be focusing on a couple things. One is they have to know why they are using social media, and then we say social media as if it's one thing, and there are many different mediums within that social media. So there are a lot of different tools, and you have different audiences on these different tools. So what is the purpose of using the tool to help you achieve your mission? What is the goal? And this also gives you a measurable. You can get this in your analytics and all the back stuff of the social media.
Right.
So you want to know why you're going to be using the social medias. What's the purpose? What is the best way to reach that goal? My studies have noted that a lot of the nonprofits are actually using it to push out information, which is kind of the Web.1, 1.0 web. Websites where you just put information out there and people go to you to get the information. The whole purpose of social media, or Web 2.0, is it's interactive. So there are some nonprofits that are using social media in a way to interact with these different audiences, so to not only inform them of different events that are taking place and what the organization is doing, but also to find out some of the needs of these stakeholders. Do they have questions? Do they have any ideas? So there's a little bit of two-way communication going on, but over time, as people get more used to using these mediums, I believe it will grow. But that's the whole purpose, is to be social. It's
a good tool, certainly, to draw in younger people and getting them involved in the nonprofit community.
Right, and some of the organizations that I have interviewed, they also have young professionals associations as well. But a lot of these organizations are using the tools to reach out to the younger stakeholders. Not only to try and get them involved, but they know that down the road, these are going to be their next generation of funders.
Absolutely.
So what social media is able to do is it's able to really help these organizations and reach out to that youth vote to start forming relationships. So online tools, all the data show that you're not going to get a lot of donations through these online tools, but what it does do is it gives you an opportunity to start building relationships, and over time those relationships will strengthen and they'll move offline, where that's when the financial part of the relationship really takes place.
Great. I want to thank you both for being here today. We're going to go to break, but for those of you in the audience, it's the Nonprofit Management Conference, September 21st at the University of North Florida University Center, half-day conference. You can get more information at sbdc.unf.edu. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I'm Mayor Alvin Brown, here to tell you about the City of Jacksonville's first mobile app to help you prepare for hurricane season. Jax Ready helps you monitor fire and weather threats, get evacuation alerts in the event of a natural disaster, and much more. This app was developed by the city's Information Technologies Division and the Emergency Preparedness Division to help you stay safe this hurricane season.
Hello there. Hello again. Welcome back to Speaking of Business. Again, I'm your host, Nancy Boyle. Now we're going to be talking about money and how to get some money. So joining me on the second half are Tracy DeVack with Navy Federal Credit Union and Kevin Monahan with the Small Business Development Center. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you.
And since we've talked a little bit to Kevin this morning already, Tracy, why don't you tell us what you do at Navy Federal?
I'm a business account specialist with Navy Federal. I've been with them for 21 years now, so I've got a good handle on that. And we offer small business accounts and lending to business members that fall within our field of membership, which is we serve the Department of Defense, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, civilian employees, and their family members.
Okay, so anybody who's been directly related to the military, it sounds like, and their immediate family, correct?
They have to be receiving a pension. They have to be retired or active.
Okay.
And then their family members, yes.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the concept of a credit union. You join it, you're a member, right? And then as a member,
each member has a voting right, so that it's all equal. So they vote on the credit union and who the board is, and it's volunteers. So it operates a little bit differently. As you mentioned, it's a nonprofit. So our profits are given back to the members in the form of reduced dividends, or reduced interest rates, higher dividends, and personalized service.
Okay, and then your function is as a lender within that community for anyone pretty much that's doing businesses. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And each owner must be eligible for membership with Navy Federal, and we offer lending from a sole proprietor that has a lawn business up to a larger corporation.
Okay. And Kevin, I want to come back over to you because obviously with no-cost consulting that you're doing with businesses, one of the big things is getting money. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the lending community in Jacksonville or in Northeast Florida, and kind of what's your assessment of it, going beyond more than just credit unions, and we'll talk a little bit about.
Well, let's look about it. We tend to work with, in the business community, commercial banks and credit unions. And credit unions, in my memory, didn't always do commercial loans, but they're allowed to in, I'll just say, recent years, which isn't quite accurate, but they've been around a while. But they've kind of walked before they could run in doing that sort of thing. And then the recession hit, and a nonprofit is a nonprofit, and they've got to take care of themselves. And the commercial banks have a duty to the shareholders, and so they both, the sector in general, has been a little more careful, to say the least, in terms of what they do. So startups are a little more difficult to finance than they were before. It's not like they can't happen, but it's by no means an automatic, and not as easy as it was in 2005, 2006, for example. I think that the criteria, and you'll speak to that, the criteria is weighed a little more heavily than it was before. So it doesn't mean that there isn't lending going on out there, and it doesn't mean there isn't personal lending and people, putting portions of that to plan their business or do whatever they do. But it is a slightly, from the business point of view, probably a harder environment because there's a little more compliance, a little more detail involved than it was before.
Okay. Tracy, let's kind of look at the types of loans. You've got conventional loans and you've got SBA loans, right? So maybe you could just sort of differentiate between the two for our audience just a little. little
Okay.
general information.
When we get a loan application in, we look to do it in-house as a conventional loan to start with. And if for some reason it doesn't meet all of our guidelines, there's a missing piece somewhere, then we may look to the SBA for that guarantee.
Okay.
We can do both the 7A and the 504 loan programs, and they're both very good programs for the borrower because they can have reduced cash injection into the project, and it's good for the lender as well.
Okay, well, because you've got a guarantee.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not 100% guaranteed,
Right.
but still you've got a guarantee. Now, what are you looking for? What kind of, I'm not even sure how to ask the question, criteria, or, you know, this business owner needs money for their business, okay? So what do you look for in that whole scenario?
Well, cash, we look for the cash flow. As my VP says, if the cash don't flow, the loan won't go. Okay. We look for cash. We look at their credit history. We look at their character. You know, we look at their capital, their cash injection, their cash reserves.
Collateral.
The collateral.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the 5 C's of lending. In their business plan, we want to see a good business plan, a good viable idea, how they're going to run the business, what their experience is in the business. We want 3 years of their tax returns, personal financial statement. Those are the basics. Then depending on what the deal is, we may need additional information.
Okay, so my assumption here is it wouldn't matter whether this person were coming to the credit union because they're a member of the credit union, or if they were going to a more traditional banking situation. You all are looking for the same stuff.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
from what we
Which is
see,
basically the
same
capacity to
thing.
pay back the loan.
Right.
And everybody more or less has the same criteria they're looking for to make themselves comfortable that if they were to lend to that individual or individuals, that it was going to be paid back.
Now, Kevin, from the SBDC's perspective, what is it that you do with your clients, or any SBDC business analyst would do with their clients to prep them to go to Tracy or a conventional bank or to a lender?
Well, I think you said it right. It's really the prep part. If the majority of the people who come to us the first time were to go to a bank, they don't have a plan. They have a kernel of an idea, or they've got some issues that they have to work out as an established business before they can make a viable presentation. And that's what we do. We work on getting them ready to go to the bank. And so it could start with providing them with a template for a business plan, quizzing them, and finding out how their credit is. We don't pull credit, but we certainly ask them how their credit is, and try to address the problems before we go. And then the other thing we do, and it's certainly something I do, not only do we critique the business plan after it's done, and they may be a couple of iterations to bring it up to where we want it, but I'll even rehearse the client before I send them out. I'll pretend to be the banker before I send them out, so a little more comfortable, kind of like a practice interview. It's the same thing.
Okay. Now, what I want to talk about, too, is the upcoming event. You know, we're on events today. And so coming up is Bagels and Bankers. So, Kevin, why don't you sort of set the stage for that?
Well, it's going to occur on September 19th, if I'm not mistaken.
September 19th.
And it's going to be at the Beaver Street Enterprise Center, which is the heavily decorated, one of the greatest business incubators in the United States. If you haven't been there on West Beaver Street, you really need to get there, and this is a good excuse to go for Bagels and Bankers. And I believe it's running from 8 or 8:30 in the morning?
8 to 10:30.
8 to 10:30. And this has been done before. We've done Bagels and Bankers for a couple of years now, and the reason we keep doing it is because it's very successful. Any survey that we do, access to capital is a number one thing, and it's not access to bagels, it's access to capital. But we throw in the bagels. And so the reality is this is a great opportunity to not only see a panel of financial experts in the banking community talking about what you need, what you have to do, and what the experiences have been, but also an opportunity to talk afterwards, one-on-one, with a banker.
And Tracy, you were at the event last year, so why don't you talk about your experiences? Maybe you learned some things that were new to you from some of the other presenters that were there.
It's interesting to attend these types of events when you have different types of lending. You have alternative lending, alternative financing, and banks, and different options for the borrower. And it's nice to see, find out what other people are doing. But to meet one-on-one with people that are looking for funding, it's very beneficial to them. We actually had a success story from last year where we were able to provide someone from funding that we discussed at the event.
Great.
So that was a huge, success for them as well as us.
So it'll open with a panel discussion then of different types of loan programs, and then go to the one-to-one, like you said. So you have an opportunity then as the lender to sit down with a prospective borrower for, what, 15, 20 minutes perhaps, and then they can move and meet with the various lenders, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then we'll provide them some information, sample business plans, a list of documentation that would be required, our applications, give them our email address. If they have additional questions, they can follow up. We'll follow up with them, see what we can do to help them.
Okay, and Kevin, you've also participated in the event, so why don't you talk about your experiences, because you're coming from a different perspective.
Well, one of the things that I do is I go out and I invite my clients and make sure they're there, but I only invite the ones that are ready. So if you're out there and you get invited, it means I think you're ready. and we prep them, and they've got a business plan, and they know what to address with the bankers, and it is in fact the 5 C's and whatever else we need to do. So all of the CBAs, the Certified Business Analysts at the Small Business Development Center are eager when this comes around, because it's a great opportunity for our clients.
Well, and I think what's nice is you get, like you said, Tracy, different perspectives. You might have a traditional bank, Atlantic Coast Bank or First Atlantic Bank or Wells Fargo Bank, whatever a traditional bank would be, and then you've got the various credit unions. Now, you mentioned non-traditional financing. Maybe an example of that? What would that be?
Accounts receivable financing, may not be something we can do, but we can, there's other options for them. And there's different lenders that specialize in different things. We will do startup financing, whereas a lot of other financial institutions won't do that. And we do investment property financing. So